Right, still on student matters, the financial aid scheme, NSFAS, has supported well over 600,000 students so far this year at a cost of 49 billion rands. That's not enough, however, as thousands of struggling students are unable to continue with their studies. But then, again, there may be a ray of hope next year should recommendations from a ministerial task team be implemented. The team was charged with finding a comprehensive student financial aid model and has since tabled 18 recommendations. Joining us now to discuss his perspective on the recommendations is Professor Chika Sehoole, Dean of Education Faculty at the University of Pretoria. Prof, good evening, and thank you very much for your time and for joining us tonight here on In Focus. Talk to us about the extent of the work that was conducted by this ministerial task team to come to these 18 recommendations.
Thank you, and good evening, Thabo, and to the viewers. In 2021, the Minister of Higher Education and Training appointed a ministerial task team to make proposal for a future sustainable model of student financial aid scheme. Now, that particular task team came out with 18 recommendations that suggest the development of a 10-year plan towards developing a comprehensive and sustainable student financial aid model, drawing on a diversity of funding sources and integrating work across government. Now, that is something that should be commended because government is having a foresight in terms of sustaining what is currently offering to students in higher education, poor students in particular.
Yeah. So how did you segment the missing middle in terms of the various tests that are there of means and capabilities?
Well, first we need to understand what the missing middle is. Missing middle are children of parents who do not earn enough to qualify to access loans from the banks, but their parents are also earning enough not to qualify for NSFAS. So as we know that NSFAS cutting point is 350,000. So if you earn about 400,000, you will not qualify for NSFAS. And at the same time, the bank will not be able to give you the kind of money you need to finance higher education, which on average, at the university is about between 120,000 and 140,000. So in terms of the means test, NSFAS has got a cutoff point of 350,000. But what is encouraging in this particular proposal by the ministerial task team is that the children of missing middle parents are accommodated in two ways. In the short term, government is advised to provide loan guarantees for these students in order for them to be able to access finances from the banks. In the long term, government is advised to look into ways in which this missing middle can also be supported.
So in terms of these loan guarantees, how will government guarantee these loans? What's going to be the approach, considering, of course, the budgetary processes, the fiscal constraints in the short term, medium term, even to the long term?
Well, I did not have access to the details of how government is going to guarantee those, but one would assume that if a student is in that particular income bracket and wants to access funding from the banks, the government will have the ways in which it will provide some guarantees, either in the form of a letter or standing as a collateral for those particular students to be able to access those funding. But as I'm saying, the details from the information which I'm having were not provided.
Yeah, Minister Nzimande was talking, I think, in Parliament, if I'm correct today, particularly on this issue of NSFAS, saying NSFAS is a positive story as far as the South African government is concerned. However, admitting that there are a number of students who are double dipping into the scheme, and those need to be investigated and dealt with. But not only that, there's been a debate around those who stay on for more than the allocated time of the course of the program. Did any recommendations around that come up, particularly as it pertains to the missing middle?
Well, I did not see that in the recommendations which have been presented. However, what I'm aware of is the fact that in the recommendations, the task team does go into details for incentivizing early completion of students, or students who complete on time. They will be given extra incentives by being funded to continue with their studies. So embedded in that particular recommendation is encouragement of students not to stay in higher education longer than their studies permit. And at the same time, they are incentivizing them to try and complete as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Regulating the increases, I mean, we saw the fees must fall campaign, one of the most notable ones. And the whole issue there was around the fees going up, I suppose, in the levels of the CPI going up, and as per the demands of the various institutions in terms of research and ensuring that they remain compatible globally. How is the fee increase structure going to be regulated as per the recommendations?
Well, at the moment, fees are regulated. Government is regulating fees, limiting higher education institutions to increase their fees by 5 percentage mark. As you know, this is not sufficient. It's far below the CPI, and it does put a constraint on universities in terms of supporting and funding other activities such as electricity, the maintenance of the buildings, of the infrastructure. So there is a comment there about the issue of regulation of fee, which government has to keep an eye on.
Prof, when you look at this, I mean, from what we are trying to resolve here and solve, as far as ensuring that the financial aid is able to be a part of a comprehensive model of financing our students, ensuring that they get education, is this does it strike a balance between, of course, the limitations that we have in terms of government purse and the role that financial institutions would need to play, because there's also been that call that they need to come on board, also pick up some slack?
I think these recommendations go a long way towards addressing those taboos, and in particular, the issue of the support of the missing middle speaks to the issue of sustainability of funding of students by government. The fact that up to now government has only been focusing on working class, poor and working class students from poor and working class background, and without focusing on the missing middle has been an omission. And government is extending its support through the loans which I spoke about earlier on to try and assist these students to access loans. Now, loans are not going to be funded by government. Government is only providing guarantee. So the issue of loans means that students can be able to access private means of studying, and then they will take responsibility for for paying back the resources which they used to finance their studies. But in the proposals as well, the long-term funding solutions for higher education, there is an implicit, assumption in those proposals that government is not only going to fund everything for free, but there should be a way in which those who benefit from this funding model should have a way of paying back.
Prof, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for sharing and that intervention with us tonight here on In Focus. Professor Chika Sehoole of the University of Pretoria.